Bob Kendrick, and I bring welcome from the great city of Kansas City, and of course the Honorable Mayor Sly James, the mayor of the great city of Kansas City. I have the esteemed pleasure of being the president of what I believe, and I'm biased obviously, one of the great baseball and history museums anywhere in the world. Is 2 hours away from here in Kansas City. But for us to have, in the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, but for us to have the opportunity to partner with the Great Plains Black History Museum to bring this history, to bring the Negro Leagues back to Omaha, because they came here oftentimes on the barnstorming trail. And I always joke, outside of Jerry, the other one that got away from Buck. Buck didn't miss too many times. He missed on Jerry, and of course he missed on the legendary Bob Gibson. Buck tried to sign Gibby to the Monarchs, and of course Gibson would go on to Creighton, put together a fabulous basketball career, do a stint with the Globetrotters, and then signed by the great St. Louis Cardinals to become one of the greatest pitchers of all time. But he could have been a Monarch, and Gibson would have been a great Monarch. This is a wonderful, rich piece of Americana. Baseball is merely a premise for a much grandiose statement. They touched upon the socialization of what Negro Leagues baseball meant to our country. But guys, when we talk about the Negro Leagues, we're talking about the third largest black-owned business in this country during that era of American segregation, only trailing black-owned insurance companies and, of course, Madam C.J. Walker, who became this country's first self-made businesswoman and millionaire of any skin color, and then the Negro Leagues. And, of course, Jerry and Jim and Tom have all touched on what Buck O'Neil meant to this museum, and if Buck was here today, he'd tell you he'd be giddy, number one. He'd be excited to know that we were coming back to Omaha, but all you needed was a bus, 2 sets of uniforms, and you have 20 of the greatest athletes who ever lived. They could play, and their contemporaries knew that they could play. It was simply the social conditions of our time and fear that kept these men out of the major leagues. But here's where the story gets good. And you won't let me play with you, then I'll just create a league of my own. That league, the Negro Leagues, were established in Kansas City, February 13th, 1920. It would give birth to one of the most important stories in the annals of American history that has never been documented in the pages of American history books. And so when we take these exhibits on the road and we bring them to Omaha and other places around the country, we are now introducing our children to a piece of history that otherwise they would not have an opportunity to learn. And that is very important. But not only is it important they have an opportunity to learn this history, I truly believe they will be inspired by the courage, by the passion, by the perseverance that was demonstrated by these great athletes in the face of tremendous adversity. See, I tell people all the time who come to visit us in Kansas City at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, the story of the Negro Leagues does not lie in the fact that they faced adversity. The story is what they did to overcome the adversity. And that story never goes out of style. That story is one that needs to be transcended through time and shared with our young people, because what the Negro Leagues teaches us is very simple. In this great country of ours, if you dare to dream and you believe in yourself, then you can do and be anything you want to be. These men dreamed of playing baseball. They had no idea that they were making history, but they would go on to create a wonderful piece of history that would change our society for the better forever. And as they touched on, Jackie Robinson, playing right down the road in Kansas City with the great Kansas City Monarchs, would become baseball's chosen one to break the color barrier. And what Robinson did, without question, changed our society. It absolutely changed our society. Our country became better as a result of it. Well, this is the league that gave America Jackie Robinson. And so we're excited to now bring this story back to Omaha, be able to work with these incredible young people, introducing this history to them, creating and forming a great partnership with a great cultural facility that is right here in Omaha. And it is what we're supposed to do as an institution. And so we are all delighted. I mean, they're giving me praise for coming and doing this. We are equally as excited to have a part in being here in Omaha. And so on behalf of the entire staff of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and certainly in memory of my dear friend, and I miss him every day, the late, great John Buck O'Neil, who was just one of the most amazing human beings I've ever met. Great baseball player, great for the game of baseball player, for the game of baseball, but absolutely one of the greatest human beings I have ever met. He had the same qualities that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. had, that Gandhi had, that Mother Teresa had. The only difference is he could hit the curveball. But that same spirit resonated. A spirit that teaches us that it is much easier and you will get further in this life with love than you will with hate. And he embodied that spirit, and that is something that we want to share with our young people who, again, as we continue to try to improve race relations in our country, it is so important that we as educators, as community leaders, as parents, empower our young people to take us where we still need to go yet in the future. This is the opportunity to do so by sharing with them how far we've come as a society, but also letting them understand what things were like for people in this country at one point in time. They have to have a basis from which we came. The story of the Negro Leagues does that, through the eyes and through the stories of these wonderful black baseball players who refuse to allow our social conditions to take away their joy and love of this game. And so again, we appreciate the opportunity to be here. And Mayor, you put together a pretty powerful lineup, man. You know, and when I heard
this is Aido.
This is amazing. And one of my favorite stories. There was a guy in the Negro League named Mayor Suttle.
Oh, really?
And Mayor Suttle was a great first baseman, part of the great Newark Eagles team, the $1 Million infield. Mayor Suttle swung a 50-ounce bat.
What sounds like just what I've been doing.
Yeah, he swung a 50-ounce bat and hit the longest home run in the history of Tropicana Park in Havana, Cuba. Wow. Now, Tropicana Park had a fence that was about 100 feet high. Mayor Suttle's hit a ball, and back then the military was the security. So the military is on the horses behind the park. Yeah. Mayor Suttle's hits one out over the horses, over the guys on the horses, the security team, that measured it to be over 600 feet. Wow. They have a plaque today where Mayor Suttle's hit that ball.
I think I know how he got it.
And we have a special presentation for you, Mayor. Again, this actually is the jersey number for the great Satchel Paige. Wow. And of course, Satchel, one of the greatest pitchers this game has ever seen. We know the oldest rookie in the history of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball says that Paige was 42 years old as a rookie with the Cleveland Indians in 1948. Wow. Cleveland would win the World Series.
Let's put this on here.
Satchel was named Rookie of the Year.
Got it?
Satchel was closer to 52 than 42. And this jersey number is the number of the great Satchel Paige, one of the greatest pitchers this game has ever seen. Just one of the many stars of the Negro Leagues who will share with all the residents of Omaha, and particularly our young people as we introduce them to this history. And of course, this is the 100th birthday commemorative 1942 Kansas City Monarchs cap that also commemorates the 100th birthday of the late, great Buck O'Neil. And Buck was a star on that 1942 team along with Satchel Paige. They would win the Negro Leagues World Series, beating the great Homestead Greats, who had Josh Gibson and Buck O'Neil on the same team, and the Monarchs swept them that season.
Well, I am honored. I want you to know that when I played sports, I was a great bench warmer.
But most great managers were.